Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. First thing, Simon says, turn down your phones. Okay, we all got that? Great. So I have a couple goals today. First of all, I'll put my glasses on. To inform you about the present state of making audiobooks. And the good news is it's maybe encouraging to some of you. It may be discouraging to other of you. My challenge this morning is time. I'm an audio engineer. I could talk about this stuff and go on for hours and hours. My challenge is squirrels. When it comes to comments and questions, for the most part, I'm going to ask you if you could write those down and save them till the end. I'm not sure how long this is going to go for, so if we have lots of time at the end, we can do lots of that. So, there's one word or phrase that just brings absolute fear to my heart. And it always has, but I really came to realize it at the time when I was a traveler in my profession. So I was going all around the country, and what would just strike this, I would break out in sweat when somebody was giving me directions to go somewhere. And the first thing they would say is, it's simple, it's easy. You just go down here, you go to the third light, you make a left-hand turn, you go 2 stoplights down, you'll see the stop sign, go by the white cat in the yard, and most of those things weren't there. And so part of this presentation is I keep hearing from various people, either in person or online, is everybody should make an audiobook. It's really simple, it's real easy, it's free, it won't cost you anything. And there's a lot of bull in those statements. So first of all, I'm sure that most of us are experienced enough in life to know that nothing is free. Nothing is free. There's always a cost one way or another. Either you're going to be putting out dollars that you didn't think about, or the time that you invest in it. So, on we go here. So, the first thing is to know your why. If you want to make an audiobook, or you know somebody else that wants to make one, why do you want to do it? That's the important thing. Is, for me, I want to make money. For some people, they just want to be able to share a book with their friends or their relatives, particularly if you're making a memoir. And I think that a lot of people here are making memoirs. Another goal might just be, bragging rights. Hey, I got it done. I made an audiobook. And it's the same thing for making your regular books or publications is, hey, I did it. I accomplished a goal. And those are all good reasons. When it comes to making money, that's where the real challenge in this is. So there's a lot of moving parts. So first of all, let's go back here. So audiobooks, what's the great thing about them? Like Carl Sagan said, they break the shackles of times. They can work magic. And they should be the perfect blend of storytelling, voice acting. So that's the big part of good fiction audiobooks is voice acting, not just reading off the page and then they went to moving parts and questions. And so you want a good voice actor to be doing your book. And when that happens, it really brings it alive. I listen to audiobooks all the time, and I have for years and years. And I can tell you one thing, sometimes the story may not be that great, but if you got a good narrator, they can string you along and keep you listening. On the other hand, I've gone to audiobooks where I know the story is good, but man, the narrator just drives me up a freaking wall. There's a very famous author, Australian, who is a major bestseller, and many of her books have been turned into TV series, which I loved. I tried to listen to one of her audiobooks, and I like English accents. I love Australian accents, but this particular narrator, it was like a nail in the ear. So I immediately stopped listening when that comes down to it. So choosing the right narrator is a very important part of your decisions here. Along with these moving parts, you got to realize this is a business. When you make an audiobook or when you become an author, it is a business. If you want to sell your books, and you have to treat it as a business, you have to be serious about it. So when you're considering making an audiobook, how much are you willing to spend? That's got to be one of the first things you decide. Like say there's a lot of moving parts. How much money are you really willing to put into it? Well, if it's a success, you may be willing to put a lot of money into it. But if you consider that maybe it really won't sell, and there's reasons for that, how much are you willing to put into something that you're not going to get a return on? Very important. So do you have the time to put into this, and do you have the budget to put into it? The next thing is, everything I tell you, don't believe a word I say. I'm a known BSer, and take everything with a grain of salt. The rules, what I'm explaining to you today is the way the world is today. By this afternoon, it may all change. One of the big gorillas in the room, which we'll come back to on and on, is Amazon, which owns Audible, which is one of the major sellers of books. They change the rules all the time. And they can, after you've invested a lot of money and a lot of time, they can change the rules and just wipe a lot of that out. So you just need to be aware of that. So here's what I'm presenting. There's the moving parts. So I'm going to give you my background. As we know, I'm an author. I've written a series of 3 books. I'm an audio engineer. I have my own home studio where I record voiceover work and music. I'm a longtime participant in author, narrator, producer groups on Facebook. And so another part of my background is I have made my first book in the series. I made an audiobook. Twice I made it, and it failed. And the reason it failed, so I've got audio-wise, everything's perfect, the sound is good. I read through the whole book, and the first read-through I did kind of flat. So I sent that off to a number of friends, and they came back and they said, that's pretty good, but it's kind of flat. Okay, well, I got my own studio and my own time, I could just redo it. So I started redoing it, and a number of hours into it, I take the files and I put them on my phone. I take good walks every day, and as I walk, I'm always listening to either podcasts or audiobooks, and I'm listening to my own, and it's going kind of pretty good. There's a number of characters in it, and as I'm listening more, I'm deciding, boy, one of those characters, I'm making him kind of sound like Deputy Dog, and he ain't like that at all. And I wasn't too happy with that. There was another place where I mixed the character voices up. And there was a number of places where when I wrote the book, when you're reading it on the page, it sounds kind of right, but when you're trying to read it out loud, it sounds very awkward. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard to get those pronunciations. And so after a number of those mistakes, I decided, you know what, I think I really need to redo this again. So we'll go for number 3. Before I do number 3, I'm still going to do it because I've got my own studio, I've got all my own equipment. I'm going to be re-editing that book a little bit. So I'll be going over some of those phrases. I'll be working on those character voices, and so I want it done right. My other option is, of course, is to hire somebody else to do it, but since I'm stubborn, and it's also not necessarily a rule, but a guideline. When you go on a number of these groups, they advise against authors narrating their own books, unless you are nonfiction. So if you have a book about, how to better your life through diet or gardening or things that are not telling stories necessarily in the fiction, then those people have a better chance of narrating their own if they are still a good narrator, as opposed to just reading the book. So I have failed, and that's what I'm presenting to you, that I have done that. Mm-hmm. So let's see where we are. So that's the gorilla in the room, is Audible. So
actually, he looks very attentive.
Yeah.
and many of these pictures on here, I'm going to give credit to ChatGPT, their AI. I said, give me a gorilla with headphones. Oh. And the other ones were the signs. I said, do this. And
wow, it's very intelligent.
I'm starting to explore into AI. So I've given you my experience. Like I say, I listen to audiobooks all the time. So, good narrators. That's me.
Who's that guy?
Is that after the second?
Yeah.
So that's what good narrators will do to you, is they will immerse you in the story. And they can do that through changing the volume of how they're talking to you, or the volume when somebody's getting excited, or when somebody's getting very intimate. Through their emotions, their accents, and the love of just hearing stories. So this goes back, you know, a good storyteller really draws in the audience. And I'm not sure how many of you were ever scouts or had some kind of an experience like that, where we sat around the campfire and listening to good stories. Ghost stories were always great. So my love of listening to audiobooks and audio stories goes back to when NPR was kind of new. How many of you remember Prairie Home Companion? Yeah. So Garrison Keillor, what a narrator that guy. He could tell a story, and he wasn't doing a lot of different accents. He wasn't doing very much with his volume. He was kind of a monotone guy, but he had good pacing.
Yes.
And he could draw you in, and so we all wanted to know what the news from Lake Wobegon was. We all learned the characters, and we all fell in love with them. Even before that, I grew up listening to Disney stories on 45s. Little Johnny Everything, that was one of my favorites, and the story of Ping, and I'm sure many of us in our age had similar experiences, if you ever grew up listening. And then even earlier at that, at home, my parents had some Earl Nightingale. Anybody familiar with him? With the voice of a nightingale, what an appropriate name he had. We had many albums, and then The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh man, what story that was. Same thing. So that's storytelling. It's a book in audio form, but it's also more of an audio play. So that brings in sound effects and musics, which is a whole other level of production there. So one of the great things, or amongst the many great things, audiobooks, is, as opposed to a regular book, is you don't have to hold it in your hand. You can do it while commuting. You can do it while you're walking, while you're cooking, cleaning around the house. You can listen to it while you're sick. It's good for the visual or the reading impaired. Or somebody who works on a computer all day and your eyes are sore and it's hard to pick up a book, it's easy to listen. Some people like to listen at increased speeds. I do that on a lot of podcasts to just, number one, it makes me pay more attention, and it gets me through it a little bit easier, quicker too. So why should you make an audiobook? Well, in 2024, there was $2 billion in sales. And it's growing. Audiobooks are becoming more and more popular, which is probably the reason many of you are being told you should make an audiobook. The other thing is everybody has a phone. So, and everybody carries their phone everywhere. So no matter where you are, your device for listening to your audiobook is in your hand or your pocket or your purse. So why should you not make an audiobook? Well, as I said, it's not free. There's many different routes. Some can be less expensive. The best ones are very expensive. It's going to be time consuming no matter which way you go. Even if you think you're going the free or the less expensive route, it's going to take a lot of your time. It's a big project. And you are speculating or you're gambling that you're going to make money. Now, if you're a well-known author, if you're making lots and lots of sales on your regular ebooks, you may make money. If you're not selling thousands of your books first, chances of making money go down really fast. Again, there's the one exception to this is nonfiction authors who give talks, speeches, seminars. So if I had a book about how to be a better person through my special methods, and I came to you as a group, I might be able to sell my books on the side or sell my audiobooks. So those people do have an advantage of a little bit better market opening. So we're talking about putting money in. So another thing to consider when you make an audio book is, what's the price going to be? What's it going to sell for? What's the retail? You got to start somewhere. Well, back to that gorilla in the room, Audible, ACX, Amazon, you don't get a choice. You can't say how much you're going to sell your book for. They're going to tell you. And they can put it on special, they can put it on sale. Chances are they won't. And how are people going to find that book? Again, if you go search for audiobooks, the bestsellers are going to come up first. So you being, I hate to say it, but we're pretty much nobodies here, except for there may be the exceptional person here who has sold a lot. So I'm not talking to those people. But for the rest of us who haven't sold thousands and thousands of books, we go down at the bottom of the list. So Amazon or Audible is going to show you everybody else's book, the ones that they know are going to sell before they're going to show you ours. And I can go back when we're close to the end here and go through a few pages on Amazon and show you how that all works. So before you all flush it away, let's see if I can get this guy going. I got a great story that goes along with that. I'll tell that at the end also. Yeah, so before the walls come tumbling down around you, that's what this talk is about, is to inform you of the rewards and the pitfalls of going into this. So let's go back. I'm going to mainly talk about the Audible, ACX, Amazon connection, because that is the most popular. I'll delve into some of the other options that we have here. So I've told you that, number one, you can't control your price. So there's many rules to have in that relationship with them. So right now, you are the rights holder. That's a big term to remember, RH, rights holder. You own the rights to your book. So either you can narrate it or you hire to someone else. If you hire someone else, you're going to go to a production company, or if you think you'll get signed by a publisher who's going to sign most of us in this room is going to be a vanity publisher. Just like with your books, you're going to have to pay to get it done. If you've gone the route of traditional publishing, somebody else, let's say Bantam Books or Penguin or any of those other publishers, you are no longer the rights holder. They are the rights holder, unless you specify in your contract with them that you are going to own the rights to the audio versions. So if you go to a vanity publisher or one of these hybrid publishers who says, you pay us so much money, we're going to put the book together for you, we'll print it out, we'll make an ebook of it, and we'll send it out and distribute it to the world. If you do that, make sure that you retain the rights to the audiobook version of it. Otherwise, you got no say. You can't make an audiobook. So Audible is the place where customers, where us, go to buy audiobooks. Audible is part of Amazon. So if you go into Amazon, you'll also instantly be connected to Audible. So when you go to look up a book, it may show you all the formats, the ebook, the hardcover, and the audiobook. Sometimes that connection isn't made. So if you do go through ACX and Audible, go back and check to make sure when you click on your book that it's going to show that you have the audiobook available. There we go. So Audible is where they sell. ACX is where producers and narrators come together. So if I want to get an audiobook made and I want to send it to Amazon, to Audible, I have to go through ACX. And I'm going to put that book up, a call for narrators. And first I have to decide, how is this going to get made, paid for, wise? So you have three choices. The first choice is royalty share, which is what most people think of when you think of, I get it made for free. The second one is paid per finished hour. And the third one is Royalty Share Plus. So let's go up here. Sometimes I jump around a bit. So KISS, keep it simple, sweetie. So per finished hour, the rule is that 9,000 words are 1 hour. So your text, 9,000 words, that's an hour of finished. So a 90,000 word novel is going to be 10 hours. 10 hours is the point where a lot of people want to buy an audiobook. Because Audible, most people buy on a subscription. You pay one price for the month and you get so many credits. So you can spend those credits on a 20-hour book or on a 2-hour book. The credits disappear. People want the most for their money. So 10-hour book seems to be the breaking point where most people are willing to spend their credits. Other than that, and we'll get to it, you can see if you wanted to buy the book outright or if somebody wanted to buy your book outright, how Audible is going to price that. But most people do go through the subscription system. So there's a lot that goes to make a finished hour. And so when you're paying, when you're looking, we're skipping over the royalty share right now. Inexperienced narrators are going to cost you $85 to $100 an hour. Moderately experienced people, I might put myself into that category, $100 to $200 an hour. Very experienced, $250 up to $600 an hour. The top names, they're getting more than that. So the union rate, if anybody is in SAG-AFTRA, and that's what most professional narrators are, they're going to get at least $250 an hour. That's their minimum. So total noobs, people who don't know what they're doing, when you go onto a royalty share, they're going to do 25 to 50 bucks an hour. If you see that price, run. And I'll give you reasons for that a little bit later. So what goes into a finished hour? Well, a whole lot. So first, the narrator is going to read through your book, or at least they should, because they have to know what kind of characters are in there. They have to know how to voice those characters. Is Susie young or is Susie old? Is Susie from South Carolina or is she from Maine? Maybe she's British or Australian. So they've got a lot of research to do and mark up. And when you narrate, we'll get around to trying this yourself, it's interesting to try and read through something. It's not, if you've listened to us read through during our critique groups, when you're trying to do this voice acting and give the proper pauses and give the proper inflections and emotions and pronunciations, boy, I tell you what, some of those pronunciations, you know, Peter Piper, how many times you can make that mistake and go over and over it again. So you can't narrate an hour's worth in an hour. It can take you, even the professionals, it can take them 2 hours, sometimes 3 or 4 hours to get an hour's worth of stuff done. And then that has to be edited because sometimes some of us, you know, in between sentences, I'm breathing like an asthmatic whale. And your breath sounds are good, but not that much. The same thing with people. We're talking, you get a lot of lip smacks in there, and you're not aware of that. And particularly as you change your position in the mic, when you talk up deep and close, we have more of the voice of God sound, which also amplifies all those mouth noises.
Oh, jeez.
If you get back, you'd be amazed at you're ready to narrate, everything's perfect, there's no cars driving by, no chainsaws in the backyard. That's when your stomach starts going. So to narrate an hour takes many hours. And then when you send that off, we're going down to the editors and the proofers. So either you're editing it yourself or you're sending it to somebody else who's going to tighten up those spaces. And the proofers are going to tell you what you got wrong. Either you've mispronounced words or, yeah, I heard a dog barking in the background. You got to get rid of that sound. So you got to go back into those files, open them back up, re-record it, and hope that when you're replacing that word or you're replacing the sentence, that your voice sounds the same as it did when you left it off a month ago. And as a narrator, say you like to work in the morning, and you take a little break, you come back in the afternoon, your voice is different. And if you've got a little bit of a cold, or if you've been yelling at the kids, or the dog or something, so your voice changes, so you need all that consistency. Again, this is to make good quality books. What else do we have? And then when it comes back, mastering your files. So they're recorded now, they've been edited, they've been proofed, all the mistakes. Within the audio world, there's specifications that Audible says it has to be this loud overall on the average. It can't be louder than this. It can't be quieter than that. And what happens when you stop talking? What do you hear? When there's little pauses. If you hear dead silence, man, that is really disturbing to the listener. You know, you hear something and then nothing. So there's what we call room tone, which is the sound of your room, your recording space, when nothing else is going on there. So again, you know, if there's the TV's on in the basement, or the air conditioner goes on, or a fan comes on, something comes on, that a good microphone will pick all that stuff up. And so you have to have a space, or the narrator has to have a space, which can cut out those noises. And right now when I'm speaking, you can hear there's a little echo in here. And because the room is bare, there's nothing to absorb the sound. And that's one of the things that turns me off to a lot of podcasts and turns me off to audiobooks. When somebody's just talking like they're in their bathroom, amateur stuff, you know. The same thing with podcasts. I can't take it, as I turn that stuff off. So for narrators to have a good treated room where they're not hearing the cement trucks drive by and the chainsaws and the weed whackers and the blowers and the kids in the basement and the air conditioning or the heating going on, that costs them money. So that's where a lot of these prices come in, why they charge so much. So when it comes to proofing, and this is preparing you as the author, preparing to send your book to a narrator. You don't just, I mean, you could just send it to them, but you can expect a lot of mistakes. So amongst those are pronunciations. So like the word Valdez or Valdez. Is it one Valdez from Colombia making the coffee? Or is it Valdez, Alaska? If you're not from Alaska, you might not know that it's Valdez or Valdez. Valdez. The same thing with Del Norte. I live in Del Norte County. How many people call it Del Norte? That's not it. It's Del Norte. Is it detritus or detritus? Aluminum or aluminium? Flutus or flautist? Isthmus? Isthmus be my lucky day. Hyperbole or hyperbole? Yosemite or Yosemite? There is a zillion mispronunciations. If you belong to a particular ethnic group and you use words, expressions that are common to you, that if I'm not in that group, I might not understand that. And so, again, those words may be mispronounced. So the proofer, hopefully, will catch those. So let's say everything's been done, it's been proofed, it's been mastered. I've finished producing an audio book for you, and so you have to approve it before you're going to pay me, right? That means you got to listen to all 10, 15, 20, or 2, all those hours, and you have to pay attention to make sure that I got all those words right. And you only get so many chances to say, you know what, you said detritus when it's detritus. That's the way that I wanted it. So you only get so many choices to send the corrections back to the narrator for them to do that. If once you accept it, if you're not paying attention and there's wrong words, or I've mixed words up, or I've inserted, you know, boy, they really said that wrong, I'm just going to correct it myself. If you don't catch that, it goes out to the world. That's the way it is, babe. Ain't no more changing. And we're going to get into the contracts in a little while here. So, we already talked about the selling price. So, here we can see if you were to sell your book outright on ACX. So 10 to 20 hours is a $25 book. Okay? So if you're in the middle there somewhere, you're going to be anywhere from $7 to $15. But like I say, most consumers on Audible, they are subscription. They're not actually buying it for this price. People can, but most of them don't. So a 10-hour book, we go back to those other prices I showed you. If you're going to have a professional narrator using 10 hours as an example, it's going to cost you between $1,500 and $2,500 to have it done. If you want it done right, if you want it done professional, that's the way to go. Now, we go back to the why are you doing this? Are you doing it for money? How many books do you have to sell? How many audiobooks are you going to sell before you make that money back? You own it, you own everything, you can do everything you want with it now, but what's it going to cost you? In addition to the narrator, we've got these other fixed costs. You've got to have a cover to go with it. Well, you've got a book cover made, and now you need a cover for the audiobook. And it has to be square. And you can't just take your, here's a book cover. It's got to be square. You can't just take and put blank lines on the side of it there. It has to be redone so that it's square. Well, there's another cost for you. You didn't think about that. And then advertising and marketing. There's the big cost. ACX, Apple, Amazon, Audible, they don't advertise. So your book's just sitting there, nobody knows about it except for your friends and relatives. So it's up to you to advertise it and market it. And have you thought about how you're going to do that, where you're going to do that, and how much money are you willing to spend to advertise? What is your return on investment? What is going to be okay for you? Very similar to ebooks or regular books, except that you can't advertise on Amazon for audiobooks. So I can put ads up, Amazon ads, so when you go to look for psychological books, I can bid on ads that my book will show up when you're looking for them. The higher I bid, more money I'm going to pay. Every time you click on it, it's going to go up there. With audiobooks, they don't do that. There's no way. You can go onto Facebook and advertise, and I believe I have some, no, I don't have the slides in there. So now you're going to have to learn Facebook advertising. And Facebook they'll eat your money up really, really fast. So learning Facebook advertising is a whole nother ball of wax. Okay, so where are we here? You can go through production companies. These are a list of some of the more popular ones. And so for them, it's like the Vanity where you can pay them and they will choose a narrator. Sometimes they'll let you choose a narrator. You still have to audition them. And so they'll make sure that all the files are done correctly. They'll make sure that they're proofed. They'll make sure that they meet the specs, and they can distribute them for you. So here is just an example of one company that I found. So I told you it would be $1,500 to $2,500 for you to hire your own narrator. If you have this company do it, that same 90,000 word, 10-hour book, they're charging $5,350.
Wow.
And that's right in the range of what these companies are going to charge you. So again, you go that way. If you're doing this for your friends and your relatives, and you want to spend that kind of money, and you got it, more power to you. If you're on the edge and you don't have that kind of money, how much faith do you have in your book that you're going to make those sales to make that back? So let's go back to those distributors. You own the files. If you go through Audible, you have a choice of being exclusive with them or not exclusive to them. If you're exclusive, you're going to get more royalties on what sells or what is subscribed to. You get 40%. If you go wide, they cut that down. So I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit here. When we go back to that royalty share, the free way of getting an audiobook made, the way that works is you're going to audition the narrators. So you're going to go to ACX, you're going to open up an account, and you're going to say, here's my book, I'm open to narrators. So the professional people, if you're doing royalty share, that means they're not getting paid. So the professionals they're not even going to look at you. It's going to be the beginner people who are trying to get some experience under their belt. So they're going to put in an audition. And for the audition, they say the first 15 minutes, but usually it's about 5. And so you can send your book or portions of your book to them, and they're going to look at it, and they're either going to say, yeah, I can do this, or no way, not touching that. So if they say, yeah, I can do this, which a lot of them are, they're going to narrate about 5 minutes worth. So it's up to you as the owner of the book now to listen to a whole bunch of narrations of what you think somebody's going to do good. And they're just doing one little snippet. So if you've got many characters, and those characters aren't in that little snippet, or if you have that special kind of language because you happen to be in a social or ethnic group, or particularly fantasy writers who use lots of different sort of names, and it's not in that 5 minutes, that's what you're judging, that's what you're hiring somebody on. So, where was I? So, give me a second to remember where I got squirrels. I went off on squirrels.
Audible takes 40%.
Yeah, Audible takes 40%. That's exclusive. If you decide you want to sell it, I'll say also Audible and Apple are in a partnership. So when you go on Audible, you'll also be on Apple. The good thing about being on Apple is they are more international, where Audible is not. So if you want to go with one of the other companies that we showed there, like Authors Republic or Find Your Way Voices, Draft to Digital, those can put you in libraries. They can put you in many other markets around the world, international markets, many other places other than Audible. Chirp is a big one in that, and we'll get to Chirp in a little while here. Anybody here use Chirp or know about it? Ah, well, you should. So we will get there. So you can either go exclusive to Audible, or you can go wide. And again, there's various strategies to doing that. So when you go through a production company, they're going to do all the work. They can keep track of your sales, and they can pay you your royalties. They can do all that for you. Of course, they're going to take a cut. So we've got... So amongst the many places, a lot of there seems to be a movement to going to subscriptions. You find that on your TV, you find that on your music. Spotify is now becoming one of the next bigger sellers of audiobooks, and they're doing that through subscriptions, and nobody knows exactly how that's going to work. If you know anything about the music business, I mean, that's what's happened where, you know, we used to buy 45s, and then we bought albums, and then we bought CDs and tapes. Well, not many people do that anymore. They, especially the younger people, us, they listen to Spotify or Apple Tunes or Amazon Music, so they're paying a subscription price. And for the most part, most musicians kind of get screwed on that. They made better money when they had albums and they had tapes and they had physical things that you could buy. And now people don't buy a whole, you know, there were 10 songs on an album, and now you can just buy one song at a time or listen to one song at a time, and the artists only get pennies on it. And that's the way that the audiobook industry is going through Spotify. Okay. So the other thing about Audible and Amazon is there seems to be a bit of voodoo or magic in the way that they determine your royalties. They say 40%, but there's all kinds of, you know, distribution fees and other fees and things that they take out of that. One of the big ways that Amazon changed was a thing called Audible Gate a few years ago. So they had a policy where you as a customer whether subscription or whether you bought it outright, you get an audiobook, and then you decide you don't like it. Well, you listen to the whole thing, and then you decide you don't like it, you can turn it back and you get your money back. Great for the consumer, not so good for the artist, because Amazon came back, Audible came back, and they took that back out of your paycheck. You had to pay them back for everybody that returned a book. So that was a great big deal, and the narrators on all the boards threw up their arms and they started boycotting Audible and Amazon until they changed their mind. And that's just one way is that those guys, they're the ones in charge, they can change the rules at any time, as long as you're aware of that. So these are the biggest distributors, as you can see. Amazon and Apple at the top, then Audible, Barnes & Noble. I forgot I didn't have Spotify on here when I put this together. So let's say that you're actually going to sell a book on Audible as opposed to a subscription. So if you have a $20 book on there, like we say, ACX or Audible, they're going to set the price. You have no choice in that. If you're exclusive to them with a $20 book, you get a royalty of 40%. That means you're going to get about $8 out of that $20 book. But if you've gone royalty share, that $20, 40%, you're going to split that with the narrator. You get 50% of that. So you're getting about $4 on a $20 book.
Wow.
And you're locked into that for 7 years.
Oh my goodness.
So that's the way that the royalty share works. When you make a contract with a narrator, which you think is free, you have a 7-year contract that anytime that book sells, you get half the royalties, the narrator gets half the royalties. So let's say, for instance, you get the book back and you say, maybe you didn't listen to it very well, you didn't do all your final check, and you approve it, so now it's been approved, it's on the market. And then you listen to it and you go, oh man, they just murdered that, I don't like that at all. You want to pull it off. You got to pay the narrator $250 an hour for however many hours it was if you want to get rid of that. You are stuck with that book for 7 years unless you pay the narrator what the going rate is. So that's why you want to listen to your book really well before you approve it. And you don't want to put somebody in a position where you've accepted them as the narrator, they go through all the work and they put it together, and then you come back and say, nah, I really don't like this. You know, that's not fair to anybody. And you're going to get a bad reputation because the word gets out really fast in these groups. So if you go non-exclusive, so you're going to sell it on Spotify or on Barnes & Noble or on Kobo, some of these other distributors, Audibles, for that same $20 book, you're only going to get a 25% royalty rate. So that means rather than the $8 per sale, you're only going to get $5. So this is Chirp. How many of you are familiar with BookBub?
With book what?
BookBub? I'm really surprised. BookBub's been around for a long, long time, and they are a email web-based deal where they send out, I'm not sure how large their mailing list is, probably in the millions. So if you belong to BookBub, you're going to get emails, and they put ebooks on sale, usually free or 99 cents or sometimes some other lower prices. And usually these are by established authors. So you're going to get some amazing deals from authors that you know and love when you're on there. You snatch them up. Sometimes these deals usually only last a day. So if you're an author and you apply to BookBub and you get a deal and they say, okay, we're going to put you on our list, well, you have to pay for that. And depending on who you want that list to go to, like everybody, or I just want mine to go to adventure readers or psychological readers, you would pay a little bit less. So typically, BookBub people made good. So it goes out, even though you're selling books for 99 cents or for free, you're selling a lot of them. Free books on Amazon, your sales rank goes up. And as your sales rank goes up, Amazon is going to advertise for you more. Your book is going to come up at the top of the list when people are searching for things. So BookBub is an amazing deal. I really encourage all of you to look it up. So BookBub opened up Chirp. Chirp is the same kind of deal for audiobooks. So as you can see here, if you're familiar with William Kent Kruger, don't see too many people here. Another big name, great author. You know, his book, normally $25, buy it on sale for $4.99. Karen Slaughter. Okay, if we know Karen Slaughter, she's always got, you know, $1.99, $2.99. This is just, you know, one small little bit. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, I mean, they sell all kinds of audiobooks, but they're always having deals on here. So another great place to distribute. So another way that you can distribute is giving books away. Either you can sell books on your own website, if you have a website, and if you're going to sell them, how? So you have to have a way of taking in money, you have to have a way of distributing, you got to keep track of taxes and all those things. Well, two of the companies that can distribute for you, whether you want to do it for free or for sale, are BookFunnel and Story Origin. If you're familiar with BookFunnel, I have used them for years. So if I want to be in a promotion where either I give my books away or I sell them cheap, people will go to BookFunnel. So you may have a Kindle, you may have an Apple device, you may have a Kobo device, and they all have a little bit different formats. So BookFunnel will ask you what kind of device. They'll send you the proper files so that you can read it on your Kindle or your Apple or whatever device you want to read it on. They take care of all that for you. And I can tell, if I want to give a book away, I can just, anybody that applies can have it. Or I can limit, I'm only going to give 50 of them away. Or if you want to get my book, you got to give me your email address. So once I have your email address, you're agreeing to that, I'm going to send you a newsletter. Regular newsletters that are not necessarily, I mean, in the end, they're about selling and they're about building your brand and your reputation and keeping people interested in you and what you're doing, ultimately to sell. But it's best not to have a hard sell. Here's my new book, go out and buy it. We try not to do that. So you can do the same thing through these two companies with your audiobooks now. If you go through Audible, the gorilla in the room, you can't give your book away. You can't sell it on your own site anywhere else. So if you had, you know, your secret little group of friends or relatives that you've made this audiobook now and it's on Audible, you want your friends and relatives, they got to go buy it on Audible or they got to use a subscription. If you were to use one of these, Audible will kick you off and close you out forever. So you can do that before you go to Audible to distribute it to your friends and relatives or giveaways. But once you're in Audible, you're locked in, you can't do this anymore. If you go wide, these are some more options for you. So let's go back to the royalty share and then the royalty share plus. So the royalty share is where you split 50-50 and they take care of all the costs, so there's no, except for like making the book cover, there's no other upfront cost for you. Per finished hour, you're paying for everything. Royalty Share Plus is a hybrid where they're going to narrate for free, but what would normally cost them money, like doing the proofing, doing the editing, doing the mastering, you're going to pay for that, you as the author. So those prices, let's see, did we have that up here? Nope. There was another slide I had that showed that went into that hour. So typically they're going to charge $25 to $50 an hour for proofing, $25 to $50 an hour for mastering. So your semi-free book is still going to cost you anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour. So that would be $500 to $1,000 for your 10-hour book. So that takes some of the pressure off the narrator. They don't have to do everything. You're still locked into that 7-year agreement where you're splitting 50-50 with them. So there's a lot of semi-experienced narrators who will take a royalty share plus because it's not money out of their pocket or so much time out of their pocket. So they'll do that for you. So you can still get your narration free, but those other costs are on the author. So, what should you do? Confusing. There's a lot coming at you. Like I say, some of you, we may be encouraging you. Some of you, I may be, and I'm not apologizing if I'm discouraging you, because you're getting the information. Now your eyes are open a little bit. You know what's going into it. You know that nothing's free. So where are we here?
You're opening our eyes to it.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, but they're rolling back. Let's talk about when you're searching for a narrator, you decide to go to this route. And so you're going to audition for narrators. Like I say, you've got a lot to listen to. There may be 50 people who answer your call that you want to listen to. Well, sometimes within 2 or 3 seconds you can say, they're out. So it takes a bit of time to vet those people. And so not only are you listening to them, but you want to look them up. Like, what is their experience? How many books have they done? Is this their first one? Do you want to take a chance on your book with somebody who's never done it before? So are you going to take their word and say, oh yeah, I've done 50 books already? Well, where are those 50 books? What are they? You know, I want to go look at them. I want to go listen to them. So it's up to you to do your homework and listen to them. Where am I here? Yeah. So also when you're submitting your book to a narrator, you want to eliminate as many as possible before they even audition. So if you tell them, you know, this is a fantasy book and I have 50 characters in it, and again, people who do fantasy tend to have unusual names. So you want to make sure that they can pronounce those names. You want to tell them, well, you know, the book is basically all guys in it, so you're not going to have to do many female voices. So is it a guy who's going to do those female voices, or is it a woman narrator who's going to be doing the guy voices? So give your narrators some idea of how many characters are in it, how many are men, how many are women. Are they old people who kind of talk like this? Or are they, you know, like younger kids? Or, again, what are their accents? What part of the country are they from? Give them that information above or before they start narrating. Again, another unusual words. I've talked about that. And read your contracts. Always, always read your contracts. As I said, that, you know, once you agree to it, once you sign that contract and you've agreed to your narrator, you're locked in, or it's going to cost you money. So now, looking at it from the narrator's point of view, you put your book to me. Why should I narrate your book? I'm a narrator. I want to make money. So how much is I make money when your book sells. So how is your book selling? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to look it up and I'm going to see your number 1,500,637 sales rank. So in other words, you haven't sold many books, or maybe you've sold a couple hundred books. Well, great, congratulations, you sold a couple hundred books. How many of those audiobooks are you going to sell? If it's for paid per finish hour, I don't care how many you sell because I'm getting paid up front. Yeah. Everything's being taken care of. But we're talking about these royalty share people. So if you're an unknown author and you sold 5 books, you know, why should I put my time and my effort into all these hours it's going to take? And if I have to hire a proofer and I have to hire an editor and a master person, why should I narrate your book? So in addition to that, they want to look at the reviews. Maybe you've sold 1,000 books, but the reviews are, 2 and 3, 4 stars. For some reason, you got a good deal or a good giveaway, which sent your sales ranks up, so you've sold those books, but the people who read them are saying, yeah, not very good. So again, why should I narrate that book? And I'm also going to want to know what your marketing plan is. So you've got a book that I'm on the edge, maybe you're making some sales, you've got some good reviews. What are you going to do with it? You as the author, how are you going to promote the audiobook? I'm the narrator. I want to know how you're going to make sales. I'm not promoting it for you. So I want to look at your marketing plan. So when you're an author and you're submitting all this to the narrators, like how many voices are there, men, women, accents, things like that, you want to give them your marketing plan. I'm going to be putting it up on Facebook. I've got seminars that I go to, that I talk at, that we give them away, or not we give them away, we have them available for sale there. Okay, you just check the time. We're doing good, right? So we talked about the royalty share and the flat rate. Make sure you understand your contracts. Sometimes it might be nice to have a lawyer review those, what the penalties are, and how are you going to get your book to the narrator? Are you going to send them a paper copy? Are you going to send them a PDF? Are you going to send them the ebook? All those things need to be thought about. Let's see. So I think we just what to do here. So the other option is narrating it yourself, which is a whole other book of worms that we can get into. So I'm going to just kind of go over this a little bit more briefly. There was a very popular podcast that I followed for years, and one of the hosts was going to put out his own audiobook, and it was a nonfiction book. And he's talking, I can just do this, I'll go into the closet and do it, and people talk about dog barking, and I don't care if they're offended by my dog barking, and all these things he was saying. The audience is going, oh my God, when nobody's going to buy that book especially after he said things like that. So if you want to do your own, you're talking about a great big investment. Number one, before you invest in anything, go into your closet and read your book for an hour out loud and see how you feel at the end of that hour. Now, when we go back to that per finished hour, so if it takes 2 to 3 hours of just reading, and that's for a good reader, to get one finished hour. We're not talking about editing yet. Just 2 to 3 hours for 1 hour. How many hours a day can you sit in that closet and read with intention, read with emotion, read with pacing? So start with that. If you can do that and you feel pretty good about it, now you're talking about equipment. And again, there's people who are saying everybody should make an audiobook. You can make your own. Some of the equipment they tell you to get on the really, really cheap side, cheap is usually not worth it. So you want a good quality microphone. Something like this, this is okay for being on stage and for being here. For narrating, this is the bottom line. This stuff sucks. And a lot of the USB ones, some of them are getting better now. So this needs to go through a preamp, and go through an amplifier, and then go through another box that's going to connect to your computer, and all those things cost a lot. There's other microphones you can just go directly into your computer now. Well, now they're getting better. Up until just recently, they were really cheap, and they showed it. But you're still going to spend a lot of money, starting with microphones. You got to have a computer. You got to have backup stuff. And then you got to have a place to do it. Are you going to sit in your bathroom and narrate? Or you need a place where you're not hearing the leaf blowers. You're not hearing the traffic going by. You're not hearing your dog barking or your cat coming up scratching on the door. You're not going to hear the air conditioning or the heating going off. So are you going to have a soundproof room? No. Soundproof rooms cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Almost nobody has soundproof rooms except for really super ultra professional studios. You do need sound treatment. You can cut that sound down, and there is software now that can get rid of a lot of those extraneous noises and problems, but you got to buy that software. You got to learn how to use it. There's another learning curve for you, another expense. And like I say, you don't want to be sounding like you're in a bathroom or like you're in this room here. You want things to be quiet and just your voice. So you've got to have a room that is treated with sound absorption, and there's a whole nother science and expense to all that. So the other option is to rent a studio. You go to someplace, somebody that has a studio, and you sit down, and they've got all the equipment, so you don't have to buy any of that. You're just going to pay a price to sit down and read. And those are going for a couple $100 an hour. So they're going to give you a file when you're done, which is whatever you've said, and all your mistakes are going to be in it, and your coughs and your lip smacks and your stomach growls. And it's up to you to take those files and get them proofed and get them edited and get those mastered, and then put together and find out how you're going to submit those to ACX.
Wow.
A lot of work that goes into it. So more stories here. So I'm hoping, I hope I've encouraged some of you that despite all these, there is money to be made. There's pride in coming up with a good production, a good book, and you can do it. But I think that for most of us in this room, myself included, it's a, what's the word? It's a project to think carefully about, and that might be better considered when we have more success as an author selling our books. Again, the exception to that is going to be if you are nonfiction, your odds are a little bit better of being able to make your money back. So if you're thinking about it, listen to all the audiobooks you can in your genre. And if you're on a budget and you can't, number one, I showed you Chirp, which are very inexpensive to buy for a couple of bucks. The libraries have an amazing collection of audiobooks that you can download and you can listen to for free. So go to your genre and listen to as many as you can. And while you're listening, take notes like, what do you like about this narrator? What do you don't like about them? What do you like about the story? So when you go ahead and you're going to interview a narrator, you know the qualities that you like and you know the qualities that you don't like. Another part that I forgot to bring up is some people, do you know what sibilance is? Yeah, sibilance is when people talk, when they say their S's like this. And I've heard a lot of authors who would normally be very good, narrators, except that they're always having lots of S's in their speaking, which, as an audio engineer, drives me nuts. So there is a way of eliminating or at least reducing them. So again, listen as, there you go. As you're listening to those audiobooks, do you notice those sibilances? And when you're auditioning your narrator, do they have a lot of it? Can they take care of it? When you come back and you can say, I can use, I like your style, but can you take care of the sibilance? So, take the leap of faith. Enjoy the plunge. This is me, by the way. Bounce back. You'll be okay. And again, don't let this happen to you.
That's not new, is it?
What is the story?
Yeah, what's the story on that?
That's practice.
That was a cabin that I helped build up in Alaska many years ago. And it stood probably for 20 years, did good, and then the area below it was falling away. So there was no real way to save it. So, we had to tear it down, we had to do something, and the water was right there. It's like, well, can we make this thing hit the water? Because if it doesn't, it's just going to be trash all over the hillside, which, as you can see, is very steep there, is going to be like a real pain to try and clean up. So we were down there in the boat. That's my phone taking that little movie. And my buddy was up there cutting it away, and it was perfect. So when it came all the way down, we were able to so as it fell apart there, we were able to take all those pieces and easily clean them up and drag it away. And when the tide went out, it was all, where you see water, there is no water when the tide goes out. So we were able to clean it all up perfectly. It was a great solution. Okay, so now, time for questions or comments.
Whoa.
Do any audiobooks ever have more than one narrator? If there are like a wide variety of...
Yes, there's a couple different ways to go. We call it dual narration. So sometimes it'll be a man and a woman. You could have multiple narrators. You're going to be paying more for that, or the production company's going to be paying more for that. And then you can get into the realm of somewhere between an audio book and an audio play. So in the world of audio books, another thing I would encourage everybody to do is get on some of these Facebook groups, and I'll try and put that on the screen, the list that you can get on, which is for ACX narrators. And just start to peruse this, and you'll start to see some of the comments that all these narrators, and there's beginners, there's newbies, and there's guys that have been doing this professional for years and years. The most famous narrators hang out on this. And you're going to start to see the problems. That's typically what comes up, is when people are commenting, hey, I did this, and I worked with this clown, and don't anybody work with that again, or how do we do this, how do we do that? So there's some consensus in that world of different effects. Those can be sound effects, or these can be effects that you do with your voice. So a lot of times we have a character who's thinking something. So, Randy looked at Fred, and he thought, that guy's a real clown. So how do you do that? Or a robot voice came on, or somebody got on the telephone. Well, it's real easy in the audio world to select a button, and the magic buttons on the controllers over there that says telephone voice. And so now suddenly my voice is going to sound like it's coming through a telephone.
Oh, wow.
So the consensus is, don't do that. Well, a lot of people say, well, I think it's fine. Well, it's going to take you out of the story. Or, if there's a monster voice, I can do a monster voice like this. Or I can really tweak it and do, some kind of bizarre monster voice. The pros all say, no, don't do that. You should be voice acting. Everything should be done with your voice. So that's a decision for you to make, whether you want those sound effects, if you like something like that, or no, I just want the voice on that. So the dual narration, a lot of times, for instance, are you familiar with the book Gone Girl?
Yes.
Okay, so that book went back and forth from two different characters' points of view, the male and the female. And I read it, but I did not listen to it. So that would be a perfect example of how you could do dual narration.
Yeah.
So that could come out very, very well. Romance books can also do that very well. And then you get into things like, the one extreme is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is, were radio plays, which were just done magnificently. So you have a whole cast of characters, and you have different sound effects, somebody walking down the hall or opening doors. Very good. That young lady with the glasses. Dark glasses. Sorry, I don't know.
Thanks, Randy. Rose, my name's Rose.
Rose.
Can you talk for just a moment about Amazon? You said that Amazon doesn't advertise audiobooks like they do, Audible or Kindle and printed books?
Right.
How do you advertise on the Amazon side if they don't feature your book then? I mean, how do you get the word out?
That is
Amazon?
the question.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what you have to take into account is, For your ebooks, you can advertise on Amazon. You paid for that. But there is no way to do that right now with Audible. There's no way to advertise an audiobook on Audible or Amazon. You can't put an ad up for it. They may change that. Like I said, the rules are always changing. So tomorrow or this afternoon, that may be different, but right now,
Because I have two books, and they're both on Amazon, and so when one is shown, the other one pops up with
Right,
it.
right.
Even though it's not a series yet, it's going to be.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be writing more books, but that wouldn't happen with the audiobook popping up along with the ebook and the printed.
well, it might. So
They do.
when the book shows up, that's up to you to make sure that those versions are married, or those formats.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes, so you can have a book that's an ebook and a print book.
That's right.
And usually there's a button there that says formats. And so if I just look you up and I look your book up, it's going to come up with the ebook. You may also have it in paperback, and so I'm going to do the formats and say that I want a paperback or a hardcover. Or now that your audiobook is there, I can see it as your audiobook. It may not necessarily show up as a separate deal as an audiobook there. But when you advertise, when you pay for ads that, my book, Freedom. So I have, Amazon ads is a whole nother thing. I don't know if anybody's talked about that yet, a whole other endeavor to get into. And you pay for certain ways that is going to bring your book up when people are searching for something. So let's say I'm along the lines of Gillian Flynn, maybe, psychological adventure. So I want people who read her books to see my book. So when somebody looks for Gillian Flynn, I pay to have my name pop up close to theirs. Oh yeah. Or Karen Slaughter's name, or Robert Louis Stevenson's name, or the book In Cold Blood. There's a zillion of these words. When people type that in, that I'm going to pay, when they type that word in, that my book will come up. Now, if you type in this, if you bid on the same words, I bid 10 cents every time that word comes up. If somebody clicks on it, it's going to cost me 10 cents. If you bid 12 cents, your ad is going to come up before mine. So that's why I say Amazon ads is a whole other endeavor there. There's a whole other strategy. You can't do that with audiobooks right now. There is no way on Amazon.
I just want to make a comment, and then I want to ask a question, if I can remember it all. In regards to the audiobooks, when I was, I used to work in South Sac and have to go to Oakland twice a week for the master's program. And those audiobooks really helped me in traffic. You're there in traffic for hours, and you're listening to this, and these audiobooks, the only one I can remember that far back was on leadership skills. But the more you learned about that, no matter if the teacher or the instructor was going to give you a question on leadership, you could answer from what the audio said and not be wrong.
Yeah.
It may not be exactly what you wanted. But I found it very helpful and really entertaining. They're done very well, if you pay the price for them, of course. The other thing I wanted to ask you, though, you've talked about having someone else narrate it for you. Do you have meetings prior to them doing their little spiel on certain parts in the book that you want them to emphasize on, or how you feel strongly, emotionally about a certain part of the book? Do you have those kind of meetings prior, or are they so good they just know how to do it?
It's a good idea. It's a great idea to have that ahead of time. That goes along with, how many characters, so I've decided I like your voice. I've listened to you. You've got everything that I want, or most things that I want. So I'm going to choose you as a narrator. Before we sign the contract, I'm going to let you know that I have so many males or so many females, and that I have this portion of the book that I want in what you just said. I want this done, very emotionally, or I want it done flat, or I want this character Make sure that they sound like they're really old and decrepit, or that this person is really, a young, you talk where things go up at the end of the sentence. So, or they talk like a valley girl. So, yes, exactly what you said. On one hand, the biggest hand, yes, you should do that. Once the book has started and you start to do that, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes you're viewed as a micromanager. And when you sign that contract, you're giving things up as you've agreed that I've chosen you and you're an artist and I'm putting it in your hands. And
Right,
so,
right.
no,
Yes.
you can't micromanage. You can manage to a certain extent, but not micro.
So if they're an expert in the field and a professional, they should be able to pick up on that
Yeah,
storyline.
correct. And that's where you get the paid per finished hour, or the people that are more experienced. When you go for the free stuff, remember, nothing's free.
No,
You're going to get those narrators that are less experienced. Sometimes you may luck out and just, get the perfect pick, but, it's a crapshoot. Gentlemen in the back.
So, have you had any experience with the AI generated audio?
I don't, and that's another one of the big controversies. Right now, is not very good. It may be better for those nonfiction books. So if you're learning about gardening, typically there's not a whole lot of emotion in there. There could be, but not necessarily. Or if you're learning about, how to use a drafting program, or introduction to Microsoft Word, or some of those nonfiction, AI might be more appropriate for that. We don't know what it's going to be like in the future, how it's going to give emphasis, how it can display those emotions, not sound too robotic. There's a number of semi-famous authors. Joanna Penn, have you ever heard? People familiar with her? She's pretty, very prolific author, big in the indie world. Mark Leslie Lefebvre, another name. So they did a podcast where, before the podcast, they both submitted their voices. This goes back like 2 years ago, maybe. So back when AI was even less. They submitted their voices beforehand. And the company that did it gave them a script which had all different kinds of words and emotions and things in it. So it recorded their voices. It learned their voices. And then when the podcast came on, hi, I'm Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and our guest today, Joanna Penn, and hi, I'm Joanna Penn, and they go about their talking, and then they're about 5 minutes into it, and then they come back and they say, well, that wasn't really me, that was the AI version of my voice, could you tell? And so some of it, no, they did 2 years ago, they did a pretty good job of fooling us. Sometimes it was like, well, that's Mark, but it sounds a little strange, a little weird. So where they are today, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm sure that it is coming in the future. And we as narrators and audio engineers.
Here I have buddies that are in the business, and it's amazing. They'll go ahead and, being I can write, they'll go ahead and go, okay, run through this, and then in the voice of, or the style of.
Yeah.
And it's frightening.
Yeah.
It's frightening. There's whole industries that are going to go because of this.
Yeah. I also watch a lot of YouTube, and it's real easy on YouTube to tell which are the AI or the robotic voices as opposed to regular hosts. So typically they're just showing, you don't see the narrator, they're just showing you a bunch of images and explaining things, and yeah, it's like very robotic. So a lot of those I skip over.
So
Phil?
would it be acceptable to Amazon, say, if you were?
Right now, it's not.
Okay.
But again, Amazon changes all the time. Amazon does what's good for Amazon.
yeah.
They don't give a rat's anything about you or me. They care about them and making their money. Sarah. Okay. Sarah. Or, Rebecca, thank you.
So I'm wondering about when you're doing in-person events and you have a
physical book that you're selling, but you also have the little thing with the QR code, that yes, it's available on ebook too. How much success have you had in in-person things when people say, oh, well, I just do audiobooks, saying, oh, well, that's available too. Is there some physical thing, is there some way that you promote your audiobook at in-person events that's been successful?
Me personally, no, because I haven't done any of that. So I haven't even tried. My audiobook is not out yet. Like I said, I failed twice. And so third time's a charm. So with my experience, I am involved, my work in progress right now. And that is my main goal, is to get that done. I'm letting those other books just kind of sit there and bake for a while. When I finish my work in progress and I send it off to the next level of editing, that's going to take a little while. At that point, I'll go back to my first book and I'm going to re-edit it. I'm believing, hopefully not deluding myself, that I can do that in a fairly quick manner. Once I have done that editing there's a number of things I just want to shorten and just want to eliminate. My first book, you make your mistake, all your big mistakes in that one. And there's some of those awkward phrases that I want to change in that. So another hint for some of you, if you've ever listened to your book read back on the computer, most computers nowadays can read text. And particularly like Microsoft Word and almost most programs can do that for you, and there's a way to do that. And a lot of them you can change the voices. So you can have a straight male voice saying it, a straight female voice, or an Australian voice, or different inflections on it. And so if you'll listen, when you're editing, again, we're blind to our own mistakes. So if you'll just let the computer read it to you, suddenly a lot of things will pop out. So you can do that editing before you submit your manuscript to somewhere else. So that's another hint there.
Yeah, you were saying at the beginning that audiobooks is, it's a very growing area and all that. Would it ever make sense to start with an audiobook? To have no printed book, and to start with an audiobook?
Well, you cannot do that on Amazon. On Amazon or Audible, these are all kind of interchangeable terms. You have to have an ebook first. But you can go to a production company. So if you can't go to ACX unless you have an ebook. So you can go to a production company or a vanity publisher and have it made. But okay, so there it is. There's your files. You're going to send them off to Audible, Barnes & Noble, Chirp, wherever you're going to send them. People don't know anything about it. Why should I buy your audiobook?
Yeah.
You can do that, but why would anybody want to buy your book when there's no record of it? There's no real reviews. I can't go to the real book, we'll call it a real book, and say that, well, you've got this many reviews, and why? You can, but why? Yes?
If your book is purchased by a subscription service, like public library or even Audible, how do you get royalties on that?
Well, Audible does not go through the libraries. So the libraries are going to be similar to selling an audiobook or a print book, is they're going to buy it. And they have two models. One of them is they'll buy your book outright, or if it's popular, they may buy multiple copies. So when I go to the library and I want to look up psychological thrillers, so there's a number of famous authors. So the NorthNet library system, if you're familiar with that, they may have 5 copies of Gone Girl. Maybe they have 10 copies. And so it's popular, everybody wants to read Gone Girl. At least a few years ago they did. So they have 5 that they can give out. And after that, if you're number 6 on the list, you have to wait for somebody. So for those 5 copies, they can either buy them outright. So let's say that, I'm just going to make a number up, your book sells for $25. Well, you're going to sell it to the library for $35. The library is going to pay more than retail price. And so they may buy 5 of those copies, so you just made $100. Or they're going to do it on a different model of every time somebody checks it out, you get 50 cents, or $1, or whatever that number is. And I'm not up on those figures right now on how that works, but those are the two models of how libraries work. And with Spotify or some of the other subscription services that are coming up, again, they're probably going to do it by chapters. So every chapter, maybe you get 2 cents. So if somebody reads your whole book and you got 50 chapters, you just made $1. If they only read one chapter and they don't care for it, you made 2 cents. Yes.
So Randy, great job today, wonderful information. Proofing, editing, and mastering.
Yes.
So it seems from what you said today, either the narrator can do it or the author can do it, or the company that you hire.
Yeah. No, the author doesn't do it. The narrator can do it, or they can shop those out to other people. So depending on how much when you become a professional narrator, time is money. You want to spend your time narrating. Editing, some people like doing that. Proofing should almost always be sent to somebody else, because just like editing your books, you are blind to your mistakes. You can't tell, or you may say, that's okay. Where a real proofer, a professional proofer is going to catch, they're going to know the mispronunciations because they're going to look for those pronunciations. And
Mastering, what is that?
mastering is making it to the specifications that are acceptable by the companies that are going to distribute it or accept it. So part of that is it has to be a certain loudness. So when you crank it up all the way, it's going to go up to a certain point, but not above it. If it goes too high, then it starts getting all distorted and people can't, turns into a mess. It's not going to be so low in volume so that when you're in the car and you cruise along and there's some other traffic, or you got that thing cranked up and you can't barely hear it. It's not going to do that. And then there's a mean volume. So when you go from chapter, and everything has to be consistent. So you end a chapter and you're listening at this volume, and now it goes to chapter 3, and it's down here like that, and then it goes to the volume. And then somebody starts screaming, and they get to turn the damn volume back down. So same thing with music. When it gets mastered, is we want a consistent volume. We don't want people always going to that knob to turn it up and down. So that is part of mastering. Again, trying to eliminate, there's certain echoes and reverb that you can eliminate. There's certain other sounds, like the essence sounds and the lip smacking. There's software that can take care of that. So that's part of the proofing and editing. Editing is, depending on how the narrator works, most people use a system called punch and roll, where I'm reading along and how many mistakers can you, I said mistakers, I'm going to roll it back. I'm listening to myself, how many mistakes can you make before? So not everybody does that. Or now when I just said that word mistakes, because I'm punching it in, before I was talking like this. Now when I said mistakes, I said it like that. And so the proofer's going to say, hey, this is too, inconsistent. It sounds like crap. So you have to go back and re-record that, whether it's a word or whether it's a whole phrase or a paragraph, and make things fit in. Yes?
Where do you find professionals to proof your audiobooks?
ACX is a good place to start. Within that board on Facebook, and I can put the link to that up there. There's a woman, Karen Cummins, Cummins, who is very good about distributing information. And so she can teach you all about audiobooks, just like this presentation and more. And she has a list of editors and proofers that have been vetted and approved. Anybody can say they're a proofer. But just like narrators, is you want, well, what's your experience? Who's used you? And, you say that, Karen Slaughter has used you. Can I call Karen Slaughter, or can I email her and ask about it? So you want to vet those people also.
Yeah, did a great job.
Thank you.
I didn't know you knew so much.
I can.
We have some announcements, and then after
gonna be taking Randy to lunch.